excited today to be chatting with Renée Todd from North Carolina. Renée Todd is currently the director of bands at Ligon Middle School. Their jazz program has performed at the Midwest Clinic. Their concert band, their wind ensemble, has actually performed at Music for All National Concert Band Festival and many different things like that. Renée, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today.
It's great to be here. Thank
Awesome.
you for having me.
For anybody in here who maybe is new to teaching, new to band directing, or just doesn't know your name, would you mind just giving us a little bit of your background and telling us a little bit about yourself?
Um, well, let's see. I just completed my 30th year of teaching. I've been in Raleigh, North Carolina, pretty much the entire time. I did 3 years taught for 3 years, high school band and junior high band in West Virginia. And I've taught pretty much all the grade levels, elementary school, middle school, high school. I'm currently at Ligon Magnet Middle School, and it's sixth through eighth grade. I teach private lessons as well. I have a studio, and I play in several ensembles in the Raleigh area.
So we're really excited to learn from you a little bit about some of the things that you've learned in your career that has made your trumpet sound so amazing. Could you just start by maybe describing a characteristic tone versus maybe an uncharacteristic tone on a trumpet?
Well, one of the things that when you're starting beginning trumpets that I found, there's several things that I can go by what isn't a characteristic sound. So there's the teeth together, and I call that bucket tone, and it sounds like you have the bell in like one of those galvanized like buckets, and the bell is in it, and I'm like, oh, that's bucket tone, and that comes from teeth together. It also comes from playing from the throat.
Mhm.
So I do a lot of singing with kids. So it's whether you have a sound that's like versus that kind of thing to demonstrate it. And I get them to say it, and then they do it, and then we work on ways to fix that. The other thing that happens is a very simple, like a very pinched sound. So if you start with buzzing, which most of us do, they're tryhards, and trumpet players, they want to try to, well, let's face it, the top. And so they try so hard that they pinch so much. It's just this really sound that's not very lovely. So basically, if it's firm on the outside, but the lips can vibrate, because basically the inside of the mouthpiece equals the reed. And so we want the reed to vibrate. For woodwind instruments, you would obviously want the inside of the lips to vibrate. And if it's super pinched, it won't. And then there's the third thing. And those kids, I call them duck bills. Now, I'm sure there's a better way of saying it, but I call them duck bills because they go and they set their embouchure, but then when they go to play, as soon as they go to play, the lips go out like that. And they're the kids that can get like on a hot cross buns. If you're a 3 note scale, they'll go C, D, A, and they drop down. There's no way an E's coming out with that embouchure. So that's kind of the three things. And then I do something called ocean sounds when I'm starting kids. So I'll do mouthpieces, but I also do ocean sounds. I got that. It's really from like the Army Field Band videos, but I called it ocean sounds because like that's what it sounded like to me, and I figured that might be a cool name for it with trumpet players. But it's just starting the sound with the least amount of restriction. So like you need the compression of the mouthpiece to make the sound, and you're not going for a high note. And I don't focus on what note it is, but getting them to make an embouchure and just blow with their lips apart and just make the sound of an ocean sound coming in and then going back out. And then we do that several times, so it's very gentle. And then now we're going to go faster and faster and faster, and finally, and your lips pop into place and a note comes out. It's really cool because it doesn't have any strident sounds, and I tell them it's like their ergonomic, it's like their gentle way, it's their most natural embouchure possible. And so like that way they do it, and it feels like I don't know, yoga for band or something like that, yoga for brass, I don't know, but they like that, and that gets rid of all that pinching and all that stuff in here. But then as soon as they try to go higher, all that stuff creeps back in, so you're constantly doing this while they're playing. um, so modeling a good characteristic sound, I think I've told you way more than you asked, but
No,
that's the
it
difference.
it segues beautifully into, you're talking a lot about now all the things that we need to do to kind of set them up for that success. Could you maybe talk a little bit about what are the things that even maybe for a beginning student what we were setting them up with playing, such as their posture, their mouthpiece placement, setting up that perfect embouchure, all of those things. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm big on when they come in, they're so excited about band. They're ready to do all things. And so why not like teach them from the start where their case goes, and the safest place for the horn is in the case for trumpet, not for everything. But I have them put the instrument, like they can open it, all that kind of stuff at first. And I have a chair one, chair two, and then sometimes like for brass, if you have a class that is separated, this might not be easy all the time, and if you start tubas it wouldn't be the case, but like for trombone, trumpet, which a lot of people start just 4 or 5 instruments to start, and then they go to the secondary instruments or the color instruments a little bit later. I have them stand sometimes because then you're sure that they have good posture at that point. So there I use a chair one, which they're sitting off the back of the chair, feet flat on the floor, and then chair two is the same thing, sitting up, but it's against the back of the chair, so it's a little bit more relaxed. And then, of course, standing. I have the kids bring their instrument to them and talk about how they're worth millions and the instrument's worth roughly blah, blah, blah to blah, blah, blah. And bring the instrument to them. They hold the instrument. There's a couple theories on this, but I try to have the exact same case they do, because it's monkey see, monkey do. Like whatever they see you do, they're going to want to do. So
Absolutely.
I wouldn't use my normal case. So at first, when they're putting the instrument together, I would first start with mouthpieces and then have them put the mouthpiece down. And then I would go to the trumpet. Now that I'm out of breath. Okay. So ring in the ring finger, you hold the instrument with the left hand, and you can either wrap the pinky around here, or some books will teach the pinky here. And this depends on the size of the kid's hands. Kids will a lot of times try to put their pinky, they can't figure out what to do with it, and they'll try to hook it just about everywhere. So either down here or up, but that depends on the size of their hand. And then their thumb would go in the saddle or ring, whichever they have, but they hold it completely with their left hand. Now with mouthpieces, when they first start, I do Statue of Liberty. So my theory on this, these things just kind of evolve, but my theory on this is, first of all, they can't buzz it if it's in the air. So I say Statue of Liberty, and they have to hold it with their non-dominant hand, peace sign and thumb at the end and up. And some people will do this kind of thing to avoid pressure, but I just do this because that way they won't drop it. Maybe this is a more high school advanced thing, but my 6th graders, this is a challenge.
Yep.
Especially since the heavy part's up here. So Statue of Liberty, and then when they bring it down, they're coming down, and then this, to me, prohibits more of the pushing in because they're up here coming down versus this way. And the other thing with the mouthpieces, I like to use a coffee stirrer, and so you just put that in, and you have to get I just bought 1,000 of them on Amazon. You just get the single cylinder ones, and they go in, and you can get them really short, and then you put that in, and then the mouthpiece goes literally on top of it. And then I like to have them blow through the coffee stirrer at first, just so they can get a feeling of how small the aperture has to really be for trumpet, because for some reason they think trumpet is loud. So what am I going to do? They make this big, huge aperture, which is crazy. So then take the straw out. Okay. So there's more to buzzing than that, but that's kind of the thing. So then I would put the mouthpiece away, and I would teach holding the instrument without the mouthpiece. And there's a different weight and everything to it, but it just keeps them from like temptations of playing and all that stuff. Anyway, so left hand, ring finger, thumb, and then pinky either goes here or down here. And then for your right hand, there's numerous ways of doing the right hand. I just tell them that it's a backward C, and if you hold your hand down naturally and shake it, it kind of makes this position. And so it's basically this. There are variations. Some teachers teach this. This is, to me, terrible. This is really hard to do. And then there's some kids that will try to flat finger it. The biggest thing is that their hand has to be off the lead pipe. And so if I was, teaching somebody who wasn't a brass player or a trumpet player, the tendency is going to be they're going to want to hold it with both hands. And so just like trombone, you're going to hold it with your left hand. Your right hand moves the buttons. And so I have them make a backward C, and I say it's like, it's just like a pirate. You're looking down the telescope, and they all go, "Arr," and I like make them look at me. Like I go down the line, "Oh, I don't see you. Where's your telescope?" And that's because their hands like that. So they can't, and then they're like, and then they finally figure it out. So it's the fingerprints because everybody has some kind of device that they need a fingerprint for. So they feel that and put that on the pads. Ms Todd, would I put my finger in the hook? And so I say, nope, goes on top. It's there for you to set it on top. And then, well, why has it got a hook? And that's so you can carry it when you're taking music or with your mutes and stuff to the, you make up stuff, right? And, yeah. So, and then you bring your instrument to you. So once they do this, and then I have a thing where they have to, this sounds bad, but I say it's like you're a used car salesman. You have to present to me that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So they have to make a video, or they have to do it like I've had them do a video, but I'm kind of burnt on videos right now. So they have to present in front of the class, and they open their case and they show the parts, and they have to name the parts of the instrument. They have to name the mouthpiece. They have to show how to hold it, put it together, and then play their first sound. And that's like, and it doesn't matter what that sound is. I mean, ideally it's ta, it's beautiful, but sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But they have to just like they have to present that they know what they're doing, and plus that just that makes sure they have all their equipment. They have a snake, they have valve oil, they have slide grease, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so holding we just covered, but the big thing is also, I didn't say this. So 1, 2, 3, pinky on top. They're gonna want to, some kids want to put their thumb back here. This is terrible because it makes you have to squish your fingers and it brings your hand against here. So you want hand off. And I just encourage them. It's like somebody told me it wasn't smush of your head, but it's like Saturday Night Live when you look at people and you crunch them like that.
Yeah.
That motion, and then you can go super fast. But if you're like this, it's kind of hard to do that. So I just have them squeeze. How does that feel? Now go like this. How does that feel? Which one fits better? And then obviously this one does, and so forth. Okay, so that's the holding.
Do you have anything about maybe the angle of the bell?
Oh yeah.
How you might teach that? Because I know that everything under the sun with my beginning trumpets would always be, some were playing down to, I would always say, the roaches on the ground, and then some of them were playing to the press box, but they didn't know what playing to the box meant. So
Yeah, I mean, so their teeth structure and all that's going to have a lot to do with it. But in general, I tell them it's a bell front instrument. The bell should be in front of your face. Like it's bell front, bell in front of your face. And at first that kind of maybe sounds weird to say, but for some reason that works. Like kids go, oh, it should be in front of my face. Okay. And most of them are not going to go upstream at that point. That's just too much work. So it's straight out and then maybe down at like a little bit of an angle because most people, it's going to be down. So I put, and this is, I'm sure you've, as you talk to different people, but I put my trombones in front of my trumpets because first of all, they'll have more space on the first row usually. And then second of all, they're not blowing low notes into the trumpets. And then the trumpets are blowing higher notes, pitches into them, which helps them like hear the pitch, and then they drop it down the octave. And then they hear me playing either trombone or trumpet back at them. But and that helps them because the trombone player's on the first row. If we're doing a lot of I play, you play, they have to look at me. So, but if they have to look at me to know what to play, they have to look up. So that's a couple things that I've found that helps with the trumpet posture and bringing the instrument to you. Oh, also I do I'll say, okay, ready to play. All right, one instrument's up. And then I say a self check, but I'm really checking, but I tell them it's a self check. 2, hand position. Let me make sure I can see everybody's telescope. And 3, posture. You're at chair 1. 4, embouchure. And then we play. And I do that it just goes back to like marching band for me. Like when I first started marching and it was marching by the numbers, and it was like, place your heel or whatever it was back then. So I kind of do that with beginning band, and then I keep doing it, but I make it just a self check. And so, most of them will do it. Otherwise, if you just say instruments up, 1, 2, ready, you've got some kid with the trumpet still down, and then they're like, and then they smack somebody or whatever. But so that's the thing. But I found that, telling that it's a bell front instrument should be in front of your face. Kind of, I mean, it works. And then depending on how flat you are, but in general with brass, with trumpet in particular, you want to have you've got to make this flat, so you have to kind of say ooh anyway, which brings this down, but there's still different variations of where the chin and stuff goes.
Mhm. Absolutely. You'd already talked a little bit about at the beginning some of the common performance errors that we might find that hinders that fantastic tone. So this is going to be something that is unique just to trumpet, and so could you maybe talk a little bit about maintaining a characteristic tone as the students are starting to expand their range? So for example, they have a very fantastic tone for those first 5 notes or wherever exactly they start. And then as they start to go up the scale, maybe they start to, some of those things kind of creep in. Could you talk a little bit about how we might check in on that as they continue to develop their range? And that also, maybe could you talk about both going higher and also going lower?
Okay. So I would start with a mouthpiece, and they Statue of Liberty. I do M, and the M tends to take care of the teeth together.
Mhm.
So M, and then we talk about something called a magic buzz. And so basically the concept of a magic buzz is where the air column is already going, and then you bring the lips together. And when you bring the lips together, you get your sound. So M, and you want it to be kind of fuzzy, because if it's a really big sound buzzing, it's going to be an awful sound on the trumpet. And get them to do I play, you play, and the word observe. My friend Austin Green taught me this. The word observe is a beautiful, if you go look or listen, it doesn't always work. But if you say the word observe, they suddenly go, it's like little birds. They look up, they stop, observe. Okay, that's a big word. So air column, magic buzz, get them to do and you just bring the lips together. If you're saying M, they're kind of almost together, but they won't do that because they know they're not supposed to make sound.
Mhm.
And then mouthpiece is 1 turn to the right, quarter turn to the right. Sometimes kids think they're screws, like bridges. There's not. It's just metal, and it's how it works. And then to get it out, it's a quarter turn to the left. And it's true that if you pop it, the mouthpiece can get stuck. It usually gets stuck though when it falls over, which means they're putting it on the bell and they think they're really cool, which then it falls. And then you have to use a mouthpiece puller, which is a pain. We all know that. So quarter turn to the right. And then the ocean sound would be a different way of kind of getting to the same way. It just depends on what kid, because you're going to have like 60% of the kids this is going to work for, and then 20% of the kids this is going to work for, and 15% this is going to work for, and the other 5%, yikes. Okay, we'll figure it out. That's the duckbill kids, the 5%.
Okay.
All right. So ocean sounds. You have them do that kind of a slower than I just did it. They're going to want to go right to the tone. So you have to, I conduct it. And then when my hand goes out, that's when they make their air go fast enough to make a tone. So this is like the ocean, and then it goes back out. And then when my hand turns over, that's when they make the tone. But I always observe, model it first. And I probably should have my sounds for musician on.
I can hear it just fine through mine.
Is it okay? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds great.
And so that's ocean sounds. And then another thing is I do with the trumpets pretty much off the bat, and trombones. I'll do something called basketball or low, middle, high. And basically, if you take your hand, we'll play on our hand, and if you blow your airstream towards your fingertips, that pushes your jaw forward, which makes your aperture larger, which makes a low sound, which is weird because if you're blowing up here, it's low, and then if you're blowing here, it's higher. So it's backwards, but that's how it works. So, and trombones even more so, like top lip over bottom, blows to the bottom. So, for them to play, when they're playing, I encourage the low, middle, high. I like them to tongue right away, but at this point, I wouldn't introduce tonguing even yet on the instrument. I would have done some air stuff without it. But if your tongue's not in the right spot, your sound's not going to be good. So you want to get to that right away. So low, middle, high. I'll do a basketball just so they can start to learn where the partials are. And I have a whirly, I don't have this here, sorry, but I just have one of those whirly gig things, those little plastic tubes that you can get like at the Dollar Tree. And you know, if you go slow, woo, woo, and it goes faster. So the concept is faster air, higher pitch, but really you're bringing the aperture in and you're blowing down. So we try to do basketball, and then eventually I would get them to go basketball like that, and just they're thinking about the different levels like they're shooting a basketball. I don't know why, but it seems to work. Why did I come up with basketball? I don't know. Something about dribbling, maybe. I don't know, shooting. Low, middle, high also, but that teaches them the partials a little bit. Jumping to the next thing, I'm a huge fan of, do I have this in here? Yes. Ha. I have one. Yes.
Fantastic.
Okay. Backwards. See? So they're here and they can put, and then they have an embouchure. So that's not a big deal. But they can practice doing playing and know how that feels. And the same thing with this. Cheryl Floyd taught me one thing one time. She was talking about the flutes and how she gets them to articulate and what it feels like. And this was pre-COVID, but she was saying how she just walks up to them and she has them hold their hand up, and then she holds her hand up and she gets them to articulate against her hand, and she articulates against their hand, and they really can feel, and you can feel what they're doing, which is so cool. But I don't know how comfortable people would be with that, like, and you would know the kid, maybe private lessons or whatever now, but I think she did that previously. I did a clinic one time, and she was doing the symphonic band, and I was like trying to ask her all the questions, and I was like, that's so cool. So another thing, this I would not do for a while because trumpet players love to play with tension, and you don't want them to use the tension to get it, but they have to understand air. So you could use a piece of paper to understand wind pattern. Sorry, this might be loud. And so they, the good old, and you've got to be like super person, whatever you want to say. You got to get that, you got to get hang time on the cape. And then you can actually show the articulation. And I'm just like a big fan of 4 quarter notes and a whole note. But then the other thing, this little cute thing, and the trombone players, it kind of works for them just like milliseconds. If it's a 12, it probably wouldn't work with a 6.5, but the good old ping pong ball. And it literally stays because of if you're blowing fast enough air, the air is going around it. But that's really fun, especially with ping pong balls. I would know the kids really well at that point because they're usually flying around the room.
When would you might do the ping pong ball thing? I've seen that before. I think it's super cool. When it's probably one of those things you might have to gauge it out with the class, but certainly not from the start.
I think after they've been trying to do the CCG, and you've gotten up to like a 5-note scale, and you're like past the essential elements 1 through 11, and you get to the next page, and before you go to the A, because really the A is on the next partial up, and if they can't go to the C, that's going to be a thing. Some of the kids will be able to just with doing the air patterns on their hands. The other thing is lead pipe, and this one I wouldn't do right away either, but it really does teach the same concept. So the tuning slide comes out. Well, first of all, you wouldn't do that right away because this might be horrible for trombone players. Or trumpet players. The high school kids taught me that this is really cool to do it this way. So that's why the way I do it. But basically, you're blowing a flat concert E flat. So just like for clarinet, you've got your pitch with a barrel and flute and all that. It's a flat concert E flat, a flat F for the trumpet. And you can have them articulate and do all kinds of, I like 16th notes with it. And then to go to the next partial, they have to learn the resistance of the trumpet and how it pushes back. And you can do the articulation. And then as they get older, so this is the question, like if they were trying to go above a C, then you're doing, you know, you can keep going the different partials. It sounds awful, but that's, it's just plumbing. That's all the trumpet. It's all it is anyway.
All band is.
Yeah. And then what's another thing? Long tones, right? Long tones, playing long tones. And then this is, Darcy doing this with tuba. And I was like, I feel like I could do this with trumpet. I could do this with all the brass. It's really hard for horn, but it'll kind of work. And it's good for them to figure it out. But I do it with trumpet. And if I'm not in the center of my pitch, I'll skate as well. So once they can do some long tones, and just to I kind of jumped into this. It's just a paper clip, so I use the small clips for trombone as well.
Yeah.
But you could use the large clips for trombone, I think, if it's a large bore horn. If it's a straight, like a beginning model, probably the small ones will work better. And then the tubas with the trumpet and horn would definitely need the small one. And when you put it in, you just like pull the thing out, and I would put it at the bottom because there is, if you play for a while, there's some condensation or spit flying. So mouthpiece goes in, and don't tighten it too much because it might dent your the receiver part of the lead pipe. So I just hold it for a little bit and put it up there, and then it's good to go. I found that even articulations, like if you have them and they're doing like add a note or anything like that, they can't over tongue if they've got the paper clip in, because it will bark at them. So it's a beautiful thing. So you've got these kids that are like tryhards, like, I'm gonna tongue the mess out of this. They can't, because it'll be like, bah! And it like barks back at them, and they can't get the center, because what happens if you tongue so hard, you're not in the center of the pitch, and so it does that. This is like, I've done like a all county band before. And so, we read through everything, or read through what we're, maybe going to do. And then after the next break, come back and start the brass on paper clips, and the woodwinds are like, yes. And then I can hear myself. And then I've done like a piece with a paper clip in, like not just long tones. And it's amazing. And it's probably too much. I'm sure there's like somebody that would be like, that's crazy. But they sounded, from my perspective, that like so much more in the center. And it almost feels like, to me, after I play with a paperclip, I sound better. So, and I'm, a middle school band director. I'm not like some professional trumpet player, but if it helps me, why wouldn't it help a middle schooler? So
Absolutely.
So you got paper clips, the toys.
Yeah.
You can do all of this old school, which is the lead pipe. And then instead of using the straw, you can go turn, if they play with their teeth together, you can turn the mouthpiece. But if I have braces, so this kind of bothers me a little bit. But that teaches the airflow.
Mm-hmm.
The kids will try to buzz, so you have to be careful because you don't want them to hurt themselves. But it just teaches the airflow. Paper clips are pretty cheap. Like, I know that the office staff is wondering why I wanted 15 boxes of paper clips. But I did order them. And then I ordered for like $30 on Amazon. It's like the theater people use it, and like construction people use it. The big metallic, the big magnet. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
a big magnet on wheels, and then the kids fight at the end of the day who wants to go through the aisles, and like any that have fallen, and it picks them up. And I mean, I can say that I didn't do this at first when we came back. Obviously, it's just a lot happening, but a lot to not want to do that. But I mean, the kids now, Miss Todd, I need a paper clip, and I just have them because I mean, yeah, hold on to them, but they're gonna
Yeah.
somewhat lose them, and then they'll be like, oh, never mind, there's one on the stand. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's all the things, but it's truly when I like looked at as soon as I get to the end of the school year and I would look through my Amazon receipts, I just was always shocked at some of the most absurd things that I purchased. But that it's amazing that what just a little $10 to $20 thing that you buy in bulk on Amazon can do. Like a paper clips, that's the first time I've actually heard of that one. So that's
Oh, it's
I'm I'm
it's
so
a
excited.
saving grace,
I
like.
know that's fantastic.
It is. And then like if you're doing it with a full band like that, the woodwinds can really hear, and you can get the lower, like the bass clarinet, bari sax, tenor sax, like bassoon situation lined up. And then everybody else, the brass have to listen because they're trying, if they don't slot their note and they're not in the right partial, it just is but it makes them, it's basically like they're buzzing without the ugliness of buzzing. And
Exactly.
then the other thing is, so how to play higher. You asked me about how to play higher. So there's the low, middle, high. But then say if you wanted to teach higher on trumpet. So this would be like later in sixth grade or beginning band, much later in beginning band. I'm gonna take the words of John Faddis. He is a particularly high note trumpet player. So, what he taught when we went to Midwest, he was teaching some of my kids about. He was like, "What's your highest note?" And he said something about if the more you kiss, the higher you can play. I mean, I was just like, and my principal was there. I was just like, please stop. But he did this thing where I call them 1-3-5s in lessons, and you play. The point of it is most kids that are trying to go higher, they'll play louder, and that blows the aperture apart. So think coffee stir versus like a McDonald's straw, and their aperture goes really big, so they can't get high notes to respond. So he has you play as soft as audibly possible, and the first, no matter how soft you play at first, like the first 4 times, he tells you you're too loud because that's, I mean, it's almost like they're whisper tones. So I don't think Zoom will pick this up very well because it tends to make everything the same dynamic, but just, but it's like a really, 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 really small sound, and then you just go up, and you can have them do it. I call them 1-3-5s, and I have them go up, and the kids will go all the way up, and they'll be like above high C, going, I don't know where the fingering is, and
Yeah.
oh nope, it's too loud. You gotta get softer, and though their tendency is as they go up, and if you just have them thinking about the arpeggio, then they're not thinking about what note they are
Mhm.
playing. And so like sometimes if you play chromatics or if you play scales, they're hung up on the what that note is. But if you're doing an arpeggio, it's just da, 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 just thinking what the pitches are. The notes will just kind of come out. But the
Mhm.
big thing is how small, how soft can you play? And that gets the aperture in. Now that's not how you would want to play it, but that's how you get started in your range and learning how the horn works. Um, hmm,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then there's chromatics. I mean, playing softly, some good old Clarks. But these are like more advanced stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's and fantastic for those of us who are, not just teaching beginners, but also who have those students that have already been playing for a little bit that are looking to expand, but also doing it in a healthy and a characteristic way.
Um,
We are at about 4 minutes left, and this was fantastic. Like this is
I didn't fix the duck bill. The duck bill,
oh,
you have
okay,
to say ah m, and they have to keep their this flat. The
okay.
and then if they play a little bit with this in, I think it fixes it. The other thing is paper clipping.
Hmm.
There was one more thing that helps with duck bill. Oh, it's the ah m, and then you smell something because it points the chin. Ah m, and when that happens, this tends to stay locked. And then you can also, like, another thing is I don't touch breathing with the instrument at first
Mhm.
because that gets everything disorganized.
Yes.
So a kid that was doing the duckbill, I'd have them breathe purposely through their
So,
nose. Okay.
Renee, this has been absolutely fantastic, and I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody listening has also learned a lot that we can take with us this school year. Do you mind if anybody emails you if they have any
Oh,
questions following up what you talked about today?
absolutely.
Can you share with us your
That's a great
email
question.
address?
Yes, it is rtodd1 at wcpss.net, which is Wake County Public School Systems. So wcpss.net. And then if you can't get through that one because the spam something, it's RT and then trumpet at Gmail. So my initials and then trumpet at gmail.com.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Renee, for taking time to be with us today and sharing all this. This is great.
Cool. Thank you.